Greetings, traveler, and welcome back to the fire. I know it's been a long time since we gathered here, and I apologize for leaving you out in the cold. We've been very hard at work on a new novel and a Hallowtide Skirmish Game by Blacksite Studios. This episode marks the start of a miniseries, The Crimson Pilgrimage. This serves as a prelude to the world-changing campaign of the Hallowtide Skirmish Game. For this special episode, we are joined by the voice talents of Callie Thayer, longtime ally of the Hallowtide crew. I hope you enjoy tonight's episode and travel with us as we endure this grim and bitter pilgrimage.
Twice as Many Stars. Written by Christopher Bungay. Narrated by Callie Thayer. The smell was what hit Hildren first when she opened the door to the pig pen. She was no stranger to the smells of the farm. She had been taking on all the duties to keep the small homestead running after the death of her husband last summer. This included the butchering and the cleaning, and she was used to all the smells that came with living and with dying. But this was different. There was more salt to it, so much that it burned her eyes and scalded her nostrils as she entered. The smell carried with it a rush of memories full of soured meat and the half-eaten things you'd find in the wild, partially devoured before whatever predator had abandoned the kill, forcing you to guess what creature they used to be. The smell told her what to fear, and sure enough, she found Bruna, the largest sow, bled out in the corner of her little stall. She had been pregnant, and her stillborn litter lay unmoving in the crimson wash around her. This was too soon. She should have had more time and been able to stay up with the delivery. Hildren had seen it before. A piglet rips something up on the way out, and the mother bleeds to death while desperately trying to give her children a chance at their life as her body fails. The gift of life was one of the most dangerous things in the world, for both men and pigs. Hildren steeled herself, taking a handkerchief and placing it over her mouth as she set about the grim task of cleaning up the tragedy. She would need to get both of her boys, Elias and little Shawnee, to help her move Big Bruna. Still, she could take care of the little ones. Some motherly instinct wanted her to save her boys from that, even if they had already seen worse in their short lives. As she bent down, she saw two little heads twitch, causing Hildren to jump back. "Oh, little miracles," she whispered under her breath. As she reached downward again, the two heads turned towards her, and she realized in a moment of shock that both heads belonged to the same little female. Two little pig faces connected to a tiny, unfinished body, red with the blood of birth. One head had big brown eyes, while the others were blue and blind. She knew what she ought to do. These twisted creatures were bad omens, doubly bad considering the death of Bruna. The proper thing to do would be to kill it quick and bury it deep. Bertram would not have hesitated if he were alive, although he might have shown the body to the boys first to see if he could get a rise out of them. That was just the kind of man he was. Death was often a mercy for beasts born like this. They lived half-lives, usually, their insides all twisted up and unready for the world. This one looked too small as well. Who knew if inside there were enough parts to support two greedy mouths? Even as she told herself all of this, Hildren reached down and scooped up the little piglets, finding a rag to clean it off. There was just something about those faces. Something about it being the only one left, and cursed with such hardship. It was a fight to live as long as it had, and it would be more of a fight to keep going, and if this little creature was willing to fight for it, she was not going to take that choice away. There was another sow who had farrowed a few days back, and she should have enough milk for 1 or 2 more. After the odd piglets survived the week, Hildren introduced it to her sons. The boys were fascinated, of course, in that kind of disgusted wonder common to young men. "Wow, I didn't know they could come with 2 heads," little 9-year-old Shawnee said, reaching out for the small creature. We shouldn't keep it, though," the older Elias said, his eyes flickering to his mother's for approval. After they lost Bertram, he had been trying so hard to step into his shoes. "It's supposed to be bad luck." "Or it's a miracle," Hildren countered, looking down at the 2 little faces. "The rest of the litter didn't make it, and this one was the one to live. I think that says something." "We should name her. 1 name for each head." Shawnee pointed towards the brown-eyed piglet. "Maple," and then shifted his fingers towards the blue. "And—" "Don't name things that you're going to have to kill," Elias admonished his brother, as if he hadn't been the one to name Bruna in the first place. "Bluebell," Hildren said, siding with her younger son, leaning lower and handing him the small creature. Just like that, Maple and Bluebell went from being a piece of meat to part of the family. It was love at first sight for Shawnee, who spent his every moment away from chores doting on the little piglet. Elias was slower to warm up, practicing his father's surly expression and trying to think what he would say. Still, she caught him slipping treats to the pen when he thought nobody was looking. The twins grew quickly, obviously benefiting from the boy's attention, going from a weak, half-dead thing to plump and healthy. Although Hildren noticed that it was only Maple that ever ate, voraciously from the moment she was weaned. Bluebell would be looking at the sky as her twin fed, her head rocking from side to side while making this sound in the back of her throat that was almost a whine. Hildren did not suppose it mattered much. They shared a stomach, and if Maple continued to eat, they should be all right. Still, it became unnerving to the extent that she could no longer bear to watch their feedings. Instead, she gave the task to her sons, who, of course, accepted eagerly. A few weeks after Hildren had completely given up feeding duties, the 3 of them were sitting around the breakfast table eating a watery porridge. "I don't think the other pigs like Bluebell much," Shawnee said. "Why do you say that?" Hildren replied. "She's getting bitten up, and it's always on the left side. I think they bully her because of her eyes. It's not right." "It's more than the eyes," Elias said, not looking up from his bowl. "Maple does everything that a pig should do. She eats, she plays, tries to be friends with the other pigs. Bluebell doesn't do any of that. She just spends all her time looking up. And she cries." "She cries?" Hildren turned to her older son, trying to get him to look at her. "Is it because they are hurting her?" "She cries a lot, Mama, and I don't think it has anything to do with the bites. There's just something about it. I can see it in her eyes. She's sad, like you and me. Sadder than any pig ought to ever be." It was after that discussion that the twins were separated from the other pigs. They were given their own pen, something that seemed to bother Maple a lot at first, but the boys visited often. Shawnee would end every night by talking to the pigs. He would tell them everything that had happened that day and make up stories to share with them. He said it was to help them sleep, but Hildren figured he took after his uncle. the creative one of the family, and was only comfortably expressing himself to an audience of livestock for now. The months passed quickly, filled with the rigors of a farm run by only the three of them. With harvest time approaching, Hildren became too busy to worry much about the twins, leaving their care to the boys. She brought on a few men from town to help bring in the harvest and take some of the load off herself. They treated Maple and Bluebell as a curiosity. A few of them would even throw things at the twins, in the way of bored men who resorted to cruelty for entertainment. But when Hildren explained how important the pig was to the boys, and how their jobs were imperiled should they continue, they quickly stopped with their sport. While managing all the hard work of running the farm by herself, Hildren became more and more frustrated by Shawnee's long absences. Yes, he was young, but he still had chores to do. Instead, he would spend more and more time every night out telling stories to Maple and Bluebell, and when she would get him up in the morning, he was too tired to be much help. It was one such night that she woke up and checked on the boys to find that Shawnee was not in his bed. Other mothers would have panicked, but Hildren knew right where he was and was more angry than anything. She threw on a coat to cover her nightgown and made her way to the twins' pen. She tried to organize her jumble of frustrated thoughts into an argument that would make sense to a 9-year-old. Bertram was always better at being the necessary evil when it came to setting limits. Maybe too good at it, if she was honest with herself. She walked into the barn and saw little Shawnee sitting in the straw of the pen facing Bluebell. The large pig, now slaughtering weight at over 200 pounds, slowly swayed her head back and forth, its blind eyes towards the heavens, but making a sound as she had never heard before. It wasn't the whine it used to make when Maple was feeding, no. It would drop and rise in a strange, undulating fashion. The pig was singing, a grating melody that set Hildren's teeth on edge. As strange as this was, it was when her eyes shifted to Maple that things got worse. In the other twins' eyes, that were so like those of any other pigs, there was such a fear that it chilled her to the core. It wasn't the fear she had seen when a pig knows it's about to be slaughtered. It seemed to be a deeper, more human fear of something worse than death. "Shawnee!" Hildren reached out from between the slots of fence, not wanting to enter the small enclosure. Shawnee looked over to her with a half-lidded stare, a small trickle of blood dripping from one nostril. "Mom, Bluebell has been telling me a story." "Shawnee, I need you to come with me right now. I don't want you in there anymore. I need you to listen to your mother." "It's not like the way we tell stories," the young boy continued, as if she hadn't said anything. "She doesn't have words like we do. She feels things. Big things. She was born half out of this world. It lets her feel things. From out there." The boy gestured in a vague arc encompassing the concealed sky and beyond. "But she still has a pig brain. She can't make sense of them. I'm helping her put things into place." Shawnee, you get out of here. Shawnee, you get out here this second," Hildren said. But she was already stepping through the planks, grabbing a pitchfork that was propped up against the side of the pen. Bluebell turned her dead eyes to Hildren, and she felt it. Just for a second, a A wave of sensation older than words. 2 bright stars in a too dark sky, the smell of burning meat on a hot wind, the impact of footfalls that shook the ground beneath her, the screams of men and beast blending into such a chorus that it became impossible to tell where one started and the other began. The nerve failed her, and she fell to her knees beside the post, pitchfork dropping at her feet. As she sprawled forward, she saw Elias come rushing in from behind her, vaulting the small wall and scooping his brother up without so much as a glance toward the pig. Shawnee tried to squirm, but it was a fitful, half-conscious struggle, and Elias was powered by fear and adrenaline. As soon as he climbed back over the wall, he grabbed his mother's arm and yanked her to her feet. One look into her older son's face, she knew he had felt it too. Her legs moved instinctively, her brain still caught in that liminal space the pig had taken her to, her skull echoing with experiences that had no place inside her. Hildren spent a sleepless night close to her children. Shawnee had passed out completely as soon as he was outside of the pen, and she sat in the chair near his bed. Her mind was replaying all the things she had witnessed, an apocalyptic vista of sensation processed through the mind of a pig. She did not know what was worse, feeling all that with no understanding of what it could mean, or finding its meaning and being struck dumb by it. Regardless of the truth of things, she knew what had to be done. It was past dawn when she retrieved the rifle from the closet and began a slow walk towards the shed. She was numb to the world as she set her mind to her task. She wouldn't get too close, wouldn't let Bluebell fix her with that dead stare. She didn't think the pig meant to hurt her or Shawnee, but there are things too dangerous to be left alone in this world. This was an act of mercy. She opened the door to the pen again, and the smell hit her like the first time she had discovered the pig all those months ago. The same smell of salt, so strong that it burned. Her eyes watered as she focused and saw the great mass of the pigs lying in a pool of their blood on the edge of the pen. It wasn't Bluebell that was staring at her, but Maple, her brown eyes open and unseeing. As she covered her mouth and approached, she saw the pitchfork lying in the beast's stomach. She could make out a dozen more puncture marks up and down the pig's torso. She knew her boys had been with her all night, and the men from town wouldn't be in for a few hours. The truth of the matter hit her all at once. The pigs had done it to themselves. No, not both of them. Looking down at Maple, she remembered clearly the expression of human terror on her face. She had known she was becoming something, losing herself piece by piece. Hildren could picture her dragging herself over to the fork and dropping her weight on it over and over again. Death was better than living with what she was becoming. Reaching down, Hildren scratched the back of the pig's head before turning around and leaving the scene behind her. That morning, when Shawnee had woken up, she had managed to get him to eat something. She told the boys she had killed the pigs. They both went silent. Elias with this look of grim determination on his face that transformed him into the spitting image of his father. Shawnee just shook his head from side to side as if he were being forced to listen to a story that he knew was a lie. "It's not that easy, Mama," Shawnee said. "What do you mean?" He stood up from the table and fixed her with a cold stare. "Once you let something like that into the world, it changes things. You can't just shut it out again and expect everything to go back to the way things were." Without another word, he walked to his room. Hildren figured the boy needed his space. After all, he had loved that pig like a best friend. It would be hard for him, but he would get over it. She had work to do and would try to make peace tonight. After a long day in the field, she gathered some of the men to help her dispose of the pigs. There would be no butchering of that sow. She didn't want any piece of that thing living on in someone else. No, she would burn until there was nothing left, and then they'd bury the ashes somewhere far from the house. She'd prepared for the smell this time, covering her mouth and nose with a handkerchief and making sure the men did the same. When she opened the door, the first thing she noticed was the axe propped beside the pen. It had not been there this morning, and as she stepped inside, she realized that its head was slick with fresh blood. A rush of fear welled up within her as she took another step forward. The men behind her, who had ignored her warning about the smell, gagged and covered their mouths, but she barely noticed them as the pig came into sight. Its large body had been rolled, and instead of Mabel's staring eyes, she was greeted by the yawning, bloody hole where Bluebell used to be. "What happened here?" one of the farmhands mumbled through his shirt sleeve. Hildren began, but then her eyes found the trail of small, bloody footprints in the straw, leading away from the house, and she knew she would not find Shawnee in his room.